The Splatoon franchise is finally back, boys. I knew it. I knew the Squid Research team hasn't let us down yet. But before we start the video, just a quick warning that this video is going to be a bit longer than, the videos that I usually post. But that's because I uncovered lots of stuff about Splatoon Raiders, after watching the second trailer. And I'm willing to share it all in this single video. So sit back, relax, and get ready for the biggest yap session of your life. So like I said before, the Splatoon community is finally back. It's finally back at the spotlight of Nintendo. And that's actually amazing because, I'm part of this Splatoon community more than I am part of, the Mario and Zelda communities, as Nintendo just revealed a release date trailer to Splatoon Raiders. That is huge, bro. It was amazing. That is the only way to describe the trailer. It was amazing. It was awesome. And surprisingly, everyone, and I mean everyone, loved it. And the reason that I'm saying surprisingly is because, ever since 2025, even now in 2026, everything that is, Switch 2 related has usually, gotten more hate than it has gotten more love. So to see Splatoon Raiders, a Switch 2 exclusive game, getting, this much love from, both the Splatoon and Nintendo community, it's actually something refreshing to see, as a Nintendo fan myself. And the Switch 2 hate is still there. It's always going to be there, and there's no killing it. But it slowly died down as fans were excited for the single-player spin-off of the mainline PvP Splatoon multiplayer game, Splatoon Raiders. We got to check out a lot of stuff in that trailer, like some of the gameplay, the environment, the new hairstyles, the characters involved, the enemies, and much more that we are going to talk about in this video. So starting things off, the trailer started off, with Deep Cut searching for the main Inkling / Octoling main character known as the Mechanic. Now before we get to the Mechanic, let's talk about Deep Cut for a bit. Now, if you guys don't know who Deep Cut is, there's basically a Splatoon idol group that were first introduced in Splatoon 3. Similar to the Squid Sisters with Callie and Marie, put together you get Calamari. And Off the Hook, I'm not joking, that's actually their group name, with Pearl and Marina in Splatoon 2. And the Deep Cut group are made of 3 members because of the 3 in Splatoon 3. And let me tell you, the number 3 in Splatoon 3 is sometimes taken way too seriously by the devs in the game. I'm not even joking. You check out a lot of those 3 symbols, everywhere in the game. It's not just the 3 idols, it's also the 3 Splatfest teams, the 3 Salmonoid Kings, the 3 allies you get in the story mode, as well as the 3 bosses that you fight before you get to the main boss fight. The Splat Bomb being weirdly shaped like an Illuminati, which is also a triangle with 3 sides. And that's just the surface level. You can see lots of Trinity signs in the game the more you focus on the Easter eggs of the game itself. But that is a whole other topic. Moving on. So the members of, the 3 idol group members of of Deep Cut are made up of, Fry the Inkling, Shiver the Octoling, and Big Man the Mantis. Again, I'm not joking. Big Man is his name. Now, I don't know if there's, a lore where Big Man is just his title or something, and his real name is, something else. And trust me, Splatoon has lore, especially in all the Easter eggs that the devs place on the, story mode of each Splatoon game. But as far as we're concerned, we're not really sure. So Big Man is his name of. And trust me when I say that he was real big in the fandom, that people made cults worshipping him over Fry and Shiver upon the release of Splatoon 3. It was crazy, I'm telling you. It didn't make sense. Like, it wasn't just Twitter, it was everywhere. But anyways, Deep Cut is also known for their notorious bounty hunting skills, as you can see in the story mode of Splatoon 3, playing the role of third-party antagonists that later become major allies in the game, contrary to how the Squid Sisters and Off the Hook played, their roles with Splatoon 1 and 2 story mode and Octo expansion. Moving on to the primary topic, instead of Agent, the usual name that we get with every story mode, the player is represented as a mechanic. Which is actually interesting to note, given that, in the trailer it has shown the main character using lots of, different types of machines in order to, fight off against the Salmonoids. So maybe those machines were made by the mechanic himself, aka made by us. Anyways, the player is being represented as the mechanic, as in we are being represented as the mechanic, depicting that they are, completely different to the agent that we played in Splatoon 3's story mode. Meaning that the main character was a mechanic in the same aircraft as Deep Cut when they first crash landed, as we saw in the first game trailer. Now, thanks to the second trailer, we now know even more info about the game, as we now know that the story is about surviving in an isolated island, but in a more Splatoon style. You don't have to go hunting for food every now and then, like most surviving games. Because, the Splatoon is a kid's game. You don't have to worry that much about resources. You just have to worry about shooting bad guys and retrieving more land, where the mechanic and Deep Cut have to survive the island, or at least a set of islands, as we have seen in the second trailer, and find their way back to Splatstone. This theory of the story structure is also further confirmed as the enemies of the game are made up of Salmonoids instead of the Octarian army, like we had in the other story modes in the other Splatoon games. Because Salmonoids, they usually represent the barbaric batch of enemies that Inklings face off against, in Salmon runs, Splatoon 2 and 3, especially in Raiders, because the Salmonoids there have been given a more primitive look than their usual designs in, the Salmon runs of Splatoon 2 and 3. And strangely, despite their primitive appearances, they still somehow attain some of the latest Salmonoid technology that was used in the Salmon run of Splatoon 2 and 3, and maybe even more. Anyways, given that the Salmonoids are being used as a story-based antagonist, the game is already trying to tell a different type of story compared to the other story modes. And despite the similar art style and game mechanics that it shares with the mainline Splatoon games, I kind of like how the game is different in its other aspects compared to the story modes, such as, not just in the sense of the story direction, but also with the gameplay as well. You're basically playing Salmon Run if it was applied to a single player story mode. That is exactly how everyone described the game after watching the second trailer. And speaking of the game, we also had a peek at a new Salmonoid King. Let me just take a screenshot real quick and show it to you guys. That may represent either one of the bosses in the game or a primary antagonist of the story that we have to face off. We're not sure what exactly is going on, but we hope to see more in the upcoming June Direct that was rumored or leaked by Nate the Hate, along with some of the other rumors that he may or may not have leaked, about other Nintendo stuff. Although that is just a different type of video, we will get back to it someday. Although I do want to add something that I find quite surprising about Splatoon Raiders. Because the trailer contents of Splatoon Raiders directly link to the predictions that many fans have had for Splatoon 4. For some of you Splatoon fans watching this video, if you remember back in the days of the Splatoon 4 predictions, I mean, people were already, predicting Splatoon 4 even though Splatoon 3 just released. It was crazy. But anyways, back in those days, so many fans predicted a salmon run based gameplay for Splatoon 4 rather than, making a salmon run just a mode. Amongst all other predictions that they had, such as new weapons with perks, new maps, new avatar species other than the Inklings and Ocklings, a new type of Inkling Ockling species, and so much more bizarre ideas. But the point is that it is quite crazy that the Salmon Run prediction, the Salmon Run based game prediction, turned out to be right. Even though it was applied to a spin-off rather than a mainline Splatoon 4, they were still right. So it's either that the fans have some crazy prediction powers, or that the Squid research team heard the cries of the Splatoon fans and delivered a spin-off with the same exact description that the fans have been looking for. Now I get that some of you Nintendo fans, not specifically Splatoon fans, find that quite hard to believe. I find that quite hard to believe as well, because, and I can't really blame you, because we're talking about Nintendo here, right? We're talking about a corporate billion-dollar company that started out greedy but with a passion back in the past, with Reggie Fils-Aimé and Satoru Iwata taking, the lead. And it's now just greedy without delivering on the passion part of the gaming at all. See, this is where the devs of Nintendo come into play. Because despite the change in leadership with the tragic death of Satoru Iwata and, Reggie Fils-Aimé retiring, their souls of gaming passion still exist in some of the developers, given that those same devs worked under Reggie and Satoru's leadership back in the past, including the Squid research team. And that wouldn't be the first time the developers, heard out the cries of the fans, because back when open world was, a huge trend, Mario Kart players really wanted Mario Kart 9 to have open world. Because, and that was before people realized that open world doesn't necessarily work with all types of games. So it turned out to be a big problem when Mario Kart World released. But the point is that the Mario Kart World devs listened and delivered, despite the fact that open world has become the second worst part of the Mario Kart World after intermission tracks. So, long story short, the management might only care about the money without the passion of gaming, like what we had with Satoru Iwata and Reggie Fils-Aimé, but the devs do deliver to some of the fans' choices, just hoping that it's the right one, so we don't really want to repeat what happened with the open world suggestions. Like seriously, I'm telling you, all the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe players, they wanted Mario Kart 9 to be open world. All of them wanted Mario Kart 9 to be open world. I'm not joking. I can show you clips. So, if anything, you can either blame the devs or blame, the content creators that suggested in the first place. You'll be right on both sides, actually. But then again, moving back to the topic, the devs do deliver to some of their fans' choices, just hoping that it's the right ones. So again, it's quite crazy how much the Squid research team is willing to deliver to their fans, And I kind of like the way of, the non-corporate engagement with the Splatoon that they have with the Splatoon audience. This sets an example of how game devs should interact with their gaming community fans, and I really hope the same could be applied to the other Nintendo IPs, to the other devs of the other Nintendo IPs, I mean. But now, how about we talk about a certain concern that I have with Splatoon Raiders, or at least I had with the game. Because as far as we saw with the trailer, we have only seen a single player game. And that was concerning because the main feature that got Splatoon famous in the first place was online multiplayer. And that actually checks out because the story modes in the mainline series, they make about just 20% of the experience. 15% if you add Salmon Run to the mix. Not saying that Salmon Run was 5%. I would say it's basically, Salmon Run is, 30% of the experience, and the rest of the PvP matches makes up 55%, of the entire Splatoon gameplay. Now, but you get what I'm trying to say here, right? Now, I understand that Splatoon Raiders isn't really a mainline Splatoon game, so I wouldn't really think that PvP is going to be available in Splatoon Raiders. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Forget about PvP. Why not add multiplayer? Because multiplayer is what made Splatoon such a huge IP in Nintendo. It made an entire community and fandom for the franchise, and I was part of those in 2018 when I first got my Switch 1. Like, I'm sure most of y'all usually start off your first Nintendo console with the Mario game, and that applied to me when I first got my Wii and Wii U, given that my first games for those platforms were Mario and Sonic at the Olympics and Mario Kart 8. But back in, when Splatoon 1 released on the Wii U, I was such a Splatoon fan that when it first released on the Wii U, my first ever game on the Switch 1 was not 1-2-Switch, was not Breath of the Wild, was not even Mario Odyssey. Those were the three biggest starter games of Switch 1, and I picked none of those. I picked Splatoon 2. That was my first Switch 1 game. That was how much I loved Splatoon 2 when it first started. So I understand just as much as any Splatoon fan that a Splatoon game, it cannot work without multiplayer, not even for a spin-off. Like, I understand that the spin-off is meant to be a single-player game, but you have to have multiplayer because that's what made Splatoon 2, that's what made Splatoon entirely, famous in the first place. And that is why I got so relieved when the game page description of the Nintendo website mentioned that you can invite 3 more players to your single player game either locally or through, let me say it again, online multiplayer. That's right, guys. We are finally getting online multiplayer on Splatoon Raiders. See, it even says here on this website right here. Let me just read it to you. It's not just you out there, though. One member of Deep Cut will raid alongside you, and a powerful bot. Okay, now that's just a CPU, but that next part is what I want you guys to focus on. You can also join up with up to 3 other players online or via local wireless. So that is it, guys. Online multiplayer is in a single player Splatoon spin-off. We're finally getting, multiplayer in Splatoon Raiders. That is what I wanted to confirm, and I'm so relieved that they considered that. So from then on, I knew this game was gonna be amazing, and everyone would enjoy it because multiplayer is what made Splatoon, amazing. And I could play it with my other Splatoon friends from time to time. Now, I understand this doesn't mean that people are gonna play it as much as Splatoon 3, given that, I don't really expect it to perform better than Splatoon 3. Of course, that's because it doesn't really have PvP magic like Splatoon 3, and because it's a spin-off, so it doesn't really matter, and also because it's exclusive to Switch 2 as well. So I'm not sure if some of those guys that some of my friends can afford a Switch 2 due to the high price of the console. But we'll see what happens. Maybe some of them will buy. Maybe some of them will sacrifice their hard-earned $500 in order to play Splatoon Raiders on Switch 2. Paying $450 for the console and another $50 for the actual game. And it again, like I said before, it's a spin-off, so it can't really compare to the mainline series that much. And honestly, I'm fine with it. The sales numbers don't really matter to me as much as it matters to all the fanboys and all the keyboard warriors that are stuck at Twitter, not carrying a console not in their entire life for some reason. Even though I know it's gonna succeed, though, of course it's gonna succeed. It's the hype that has been given to Splatoon Raiders, not just the hype, but also the love that has been given to Splatoon Raiders shows that it is going to succeed in sales numbers. But I don't really care about that. In fact, I think Splatoon Raiders may encourage players to go back to Splatoon 3 or either buy Splatoon 3 for the very first time if they haven't, played Splatoon 3, ever in their life. So, so that they can try out the game for themselves and maybe, just maybe, and that's a very big maybe, we might have Splatfests in Splatoon 3 again. That is right, folks. I'm just saying, the community was quiet for a while, but it ain't dead yet. Splatfests are gonna happen again soon enough. The Splatoon research team hasn't let us down yet. I know I was wrong about Smash characters coming to Kirby Air Riders. I know I was wrong about March 10th General Direct. But trust me, bro. Trust me. The Splatoon research team is gonna give us Splatfest again. We're gonna finally have Splatfest. And if not in Splatoon 3, they're somehow gonna make it work in Splatoon Raiders. I don't know how they're gonna make it work in Splatoon Raiders, but Splatfest is a must, and I must have it. And the Splatoon research team is going to deliver. I trust you, Splatoon research team. You better deliver on your end, and I'm gonna stay here waiting, enjoying my Switch 2 while playing, my Switch 2 games along with Splatoon 3 till the release of Splatoon Raiders. Now, okay, so anyways, moving on with, Splatoon Raiders. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is everything that we know about the game itself. But I do want to touch upon another subject about Splatoon Raiders that, concerned the Nintendo community a bit. And again, I can't really blame them for being concerned about it, given that people thought that this game was meant to be an additional DLC to Splatoon 3 rather than a game on itself. And it kind of checks out, because we aren't really getting new characters, different gameplay mechanics, or different art styles to what we already get in Splatoon 3. I mean, the art feels more polished, so it doesn't really count. Plus, the art is always the same between, all the mainline games. Why should it be different in a spin-off? So again, the art doesn't count. But the two other points that I mentioned, about new characters and different gameplay, those do count. So I understand the argument from both sides. People saying that this is just a way for Nintendo to profit more by charging $70 for a game instead of $20, and making it a DLC. Or that Raiders was too big to fit inside a DLC in the first place, which again also checks out, with the game size being confirmed to be 20 gigabytes. Now, I can even show it to you guys right now. Or you know what? I'll just show it to you guys later when I reveal the price. 20 gigabytes. About twice the size of Splatoon 3, which is it has a confirmed size of 9.9 gigabytes. I'm just gonna show you the screenshots right now. And as far as I'm concerned, the DLCs are supposed to be, smaller than the compatible games that they're being added on. But then again, we're gonna see, if the game is really worth being separate rather than, a connected DLC. Why should it be a DLC? It's already too big to even fit as a DLC. So no, I think, in my point of view, I think, it fits to be more of a spin-off than just a DLC to Splatoon 3. But now that the release date is finally confirmed, the topic suddenly changes from is the game worth being a standalone spin-off rather than a DLC to is the game worth the price? Because if you guys remember last conversation, we talked about the new MSRP of Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. That was last video. And now we know the Splatoon Raiders is going to release after Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. So the new MSRP is also going to be applied to it. This is what got fans so riled up. Is it going to be a $60 digital game with a $70 physical version like Yoshi and the Mysterious Book? Or is it as we feared, with it being $70 digital and $80 physical? Are we finally going to have $80 games back after we already had the $80 Mario Kart World along with the $80 Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV, along with the $80 of, the Kirby Starcross World DLC? Are we going to have $80 games from Nintendo again? Are we going to repeat that $80 crisis that we had since the start of Switch 2? Now, before I reveal the real price of the game to you guys, I'm just going to say that variable pricing has struck again, folks. Variable pricing has struck again, folks, and it's now more confusing than we have ever seen. Because now we're seeing that the game is going to be priced, it's going to be $10 cheaper than Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. That's right, folks. If variable pricing wasn't confusing enough before, like we talked about in the last video, that is confusing now more than ever. Look at the website. Look at the website right here. Okay, so let me just open it on my display. So if I just scroll up real quick, you can see the game being priced at $50 digital, with the physical version being priced at $60. That is $10 less than Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. I'm already confused as to how this makes sense. What are we talking about here? We're looking at Splatoon Raiders being priced at $50 digitally and $60 physically. And all I gotta say is that this isn't the Nintendo that we knew. And somehow, instead of being shocked and disappointed, for the very first time, one of Nintendo's surprises actually made me happy. Do you guys know how rare it is to, get a cheaper first-party game? We're looking at a first-party game from Nintendo, a greedy company. I know, again, it's a spin-off. It's not really mainline. But do you know how many first-party spin-offs that don't get fully priced? Because I sure don't. Every first-party spin-off, even the spin-offs from Nintendo that I have ever seen, have always been charged at full price. Either $60 on Switch 1 or $70 on Switch 2. If you want to extend it back to the Wii and Wii U, every single mainline game, even the spin-offs, have always been charged at $50. And that was the full price during the and that was, how full price worked during, the generation of the Wii and Wii U. That the main benchmark of full price was at $50. Now, this is still way cheaper for digital gamers, but this is still considered as a W for physical collectors, being able to buy the game at a cheaper price tag than the main benchmark that the gaming industry has set. But again, that is very weird coming from Nintendo. Nintendo has always been weird ever since the release of the Switch 2, that we already know. Not just with its variable pricing, but also with the way that they're presenting games, given that there are less Nintendo Directs now. I mean, we did have, partner directs, indie directs. We had, game-specific directs, and, a movie direct, but no general direct whatsoever. Not ever since the September of last year. And then again, I guess we're gonna get even more weirdness from them. That I'm expecting more weirdness from them during the period of 2026. So if there is something else weird coming from Nintendo again, then I can't act surprised anymore. I can't. I just can't. I mean, I will get confused and I will get shocked. That would be obvious. Nintendo something changing something major with the Switch 2. But I wouldn't be surprised, because now I know that this is going to be a very weird year from Nintendo. I would very much expect for Nintendo to do something very weird this year. Obviously with the Switch 2 coming in hot, along with how gamers and game companies are dealing with the ramification crisis. There has to be a lot of changes going on with how Nintendo usually does things. And the same can be said with PlayStation and Xbox, because those companies have been changing a lot as well, both good and bad. Mostly bad with PlayStation, good for Xbox, which is surprising because it's usually the other way around. Back in 2025, that was until 2026 came along. I mean, who could have seen that coming? Xbox suddenly going from bad to good and PlayStation going from good to bad. I did not expect that. I seriously did not expect that. Now, I will talk about, the PlayStation and Xbox in other videos. But let's just get back to the topic real quick. So, I believe there's going to be even more weirdness going on in gaming entirely in 2026. Because with all the stuff that is going on so far, I don't think we even touched the surface of it yet. But we can save this weirdness for a later video, because that is everything that we're going to talk about for now. Let me know what you guys think about Splatoon Raiders and the variable pricing MSRP situation. And to all the gamers who are already experiencing the ramification crisis, hope you live to see another day. And if you do survive this crisis and live to see another day, then don't forget to like this video if you loved what you watched. Make sure to subscribe if you want to watch me yap more about Nintendo and gaming. And please share this video to your Nintendo friends. I would really appreciate it. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!